Now then, crew, and welcome back to the Andy Mechanic YouTube channel. Now, I made a video a fair few weeks ago, if not months to be honest, on an autopsy stripping down Ben's alternator from his ute. And a very good friend of mine, one of the YouTube viewers, Timothy, otherwise known as aka Killer Drones, offered to edit up the video. Now, I didn't realize at the time that Timothy is only 13 years old. So I uploaded all the rushes into a SkyDrive, a cloud drive, and he downloaded them and set to work. And it took him a lot longer than he planned. He sort of had to do a lot of it at school because he needed the resources there, the computer power, maybe the software, who knows. But it took him a very long time to do. And eventually he sent it through, and basically, here it is. Enjoy. Used.
You don't paint something without wiping.
Honestly. Now then, crew, and welcome back to the Andy Mechanic YouTube channel. Had a very busy week, been off work, busy doing the carport. Before I could start that, I had to finish making 120 odd brackets to hold a number plate on the front of a three-wheel motorcycle. Once that was all done, then I could start making the last few brackets needed for the timber work on the carport, and then we're there to tidy up. So I'm very, very happy with that. Now, you're not here to hear all about what I've been doing. You're here to find out what possibly could be the problem, or was the problem, with Ben's ute. Ben has a Ford Courier 2.2 1993 sort of 1-ton pickup truck. And one day, he said, he's making a really weird noise, Dad, and he sent me a sound file, an MP3 it was, and it was like a dug, 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 and when you revved it up, it was quite a rasp. Now, from the noise, and I'll see if I can dig out the sound file and put it in this video for you, I might be able to still get it. From that sound file, there was no video, it was just audio. It did sound to me very much like a big end knock. So I gave Ben the bad news. I said, oh, this is really bad, son. We're going to have to pull the engine out and do further investigation work and probably have the engine overhauled. And he was pretty upset because he does like his little ute. He only paid $600 for it, and that was, I don't know, 5 or 6, maybe 7 years ago. So it's done him really, really well, and he's done lots and lots of Ks in it. So he brought the vehicle down, and we made a start, just doing some preliminary investigation work. And one of the first jobs was to take off the drive belts for the alternator, water pump, power steering, that kind of stuff. And guess what I found? Well, hang on and we'll find out. So this turned out to be quite a strange one. Something that I really wasn't expecting. And this is the fan belt. This drives the water pump and the alternator off the crankshaft pulley. There's also a second belt that sits just behind it that powers basically drives the power steering pump, again off the crankshaft pulley. And I spotted when I was looking around with my torch, part of the belt has been chewed away, look. This is how wide it should be, a V-belt, and of course you can see here it's pretty much all the teeth have just completely disappeared. It's a lot thinner in section. You can see a lot better on this side actually. And I wondered what could cause this, because there was definitely a distinct noise when this belt was spinning around. It was dag, 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 dag as this was running through the pulleys. Specifically the crankshaft pulley was, it made more noise from there, and I thought, well, that's a bit weird, why a belt would do that. So I thought, well, maybe the alternator is seized or the water pump has seized at some point, causing this belt to be stationary. But of course the crankshaft pulley is still going to be turning because the engine's running, and it's slowly going to eat its way into that belt. Ben said he didn't lose power steering at any point, and he didn't mention that he'd seen the battery warning light, the charging light, come on the dash. It must have been on because the alternator wouldn't have been turning. But the question is, what caused the belt to stop? Well, either the water pump seized up or the alternator seized up. Now, fortunately, Ben has got a spare ute for parts. Yes, he's that dedicated to keeping this machine going for years and years and years. They went out and bought another one just for bits. And it was very lucky that he also had a working alternator on it. This is the alternator off Ben's ute, the original one, and we fitted the donor alternator off the spare ute, and it happened to be exactly the same, and off he went. And I said, look, the most likely reason for this problem with the belt is that your alternator has seized up. Something inside has failed, whether it's bearing collapsing or whether it's the brushes that are, you know, near the end of the life and a bit of brush has got wedged in, it broken off and got wedged in there between the commutator. I don't know. We need to have a little look. The other possibility was his water pump had also had seized up. And again, that would stop the belt from turning. Now, I did spin the water pump, spin the fan. I couldn't feel any play on the bearings. They felt really good. And since we fitted the other alternator, he hasn't had any further problems. Obviously, we fitted new belts, and I got him to keep checking them. And he says to date, which is probably about a month ago, he's had no further issues. So it's highly likely the problem lies within this alternator. And if I give it a spin, you can hear a funny noise. Hear that sort of whiny noise? So I said to Ben, I said, I want to pull this apart and show the people, you, what the problem was inside. Now, we might get in there and find no problem at all. And if that's the case, then, well, I don't know. It could be a mystery. Or maybe it really is a problem with his water pump and we'll have to pull that off and check it. But my first thoughts are this alternator. So, without further ado, let's get it pulled apart. Now, Ben did put me a covenant on this. He says, oh, if you're going to pull it apart, Dad, make sure we can put it back together once you've fixed it. Well, I can't make any guarantees, son, but we'll do our very best. Okay, well, here we are, pulling an alternator apart. Let's see what we find out. So, first job, let's whip that pulley off. Nice and easy, 22mm nut. Let's hope the Makita impact wrench has enough grunt. There he goes. Only just. Only just. Right, let's get rid of that nut. Super. Part of the bits already, look. Okay. Next job is going to be to split the two casings, basically get the back end taken off. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, they look like an 8. I'm going to grab a socket. Now, with the hope is that this thing's going to go back together. Possibly, we just don't know. I'm just going to mark the casing so we get the orientation right. Lovely jubbly. Right, all you need is a marker pen on there, look. Job done. Then we can't mess it up later on, because it's really easy to get these things wrong when you put them back together again. Beautiful. Right, what else have we got? Let's have a little look. Okay. Right, let's undo that. That's a 10. Get the little cover off. Try not to make too much vibration on the bench for you because I haven't fixed this bench yet. Now, is that going to come off? Nope. Okay, that can stay where it is. Right. So So now we need to do some tappy taps to split these two casings. I do have a puller somewhere, but maybe a tappy tap will work. May work. Let's see if this is going to work. It should do. It's definitely strong enough. There's no problem with that. Where's my nipple? There we are. Look, sticking it there. Okay. Next job is to make sure that these all stay in position. Not an easy task. Right, almost. Almost. So we need 3 hands. Oh, look at that. We've got movement. Fantastic. Well, that made it look really easy, didn't it? Okay, let's get rid of the puller. Now we're not far off. So maybe just a few little tappy taps. The old magic hammer should finish it off. So we go. Oh, nearly. Nearly, he says. Nearly. So close. Use whatever you've got to hand. Where's my punch? We'll use a centre punch that sits in that little hole there, look, in the groove. There we go. Okay, well, let's see what that first bearing looks like. Screwdriver. Now, these little screws here, where's my wire brush? Hang on. Let's get a wire brush for you. These are Japanese industry standard screws. They've got a little tiny centre punch mark, a little dot on the screw head. That tells me it's JIS, Japanese Industry Standard Screw. And a good friend of mine, Simon Raw from England, sent me a set of the JIS screwdrivers because they're a slightly different profile on the bit. It stops them from coming out quite so easy. So, first time ever been used. Oh, look at that. Bloody good, Simon. Thank you. Very nice. I mean, look at that. They fit absolutely brilliantly, which of course they should do, on the screw head. Superb. It's always nice to have more tools, isn't it? Especially quality ones like this. Right, let's pop those in the parts tray. That's the retainer. Okay, well, actually, if we try and punch the bearing out, obviously we can only get to the inner race, and that's going to cause a problem. But what we can do is we can hook out that seal and take a little look inside. So I'll get some cleaner first. We don't want to contaminate the bearing, and then we'll hook the seal out and see what sort of condition it's in. Right, I won't just spray brake cleaner straight on the bearing because it'll get into the bearing and destroy some of the grease, but I'll put it on the rag. There we go. Then we'll give that a bit of a clean off. You can see here, look, all the bits of rubber off the belt when it's been slipping. And I know that we did have a bit of a problem with drive belts or fan belts on Ben's ute for a while, and it turned out that the pulley, get out the parts tray, the pulley here, in fact this is really badly worn actually. I had to put it in the lathe and just clean it up because it was quite badly rusted. The vehicle had been parked for 9 years before Ben got it and put it back on the road, and you can see if you look at the profile on there, it's quite a step, isn't there? So that could have been a contributing factor. I don't think it's the only problem, because, you know, why would it cause it to jam? That wouldn't cause it to stop. Okay, we're going in. Probably going to wreck the seal, but hey, not the end of the world. Let's go in from the outside. The bit that doesn't turn. There we go. Okay, that's probably quite reusable. Well, we can see in there, look, the grease is very, very old. It's almost turned to like a solid. There, look, you see that bit there? Very old. Not really doing a lot, to be fair. But you can see here, look, it's all like little tiny bits. Not ideal. What does the bearing feel like, Andy? That's what you want to know, isn't it? Well, it actually feels pretty smooth. Is there any play? No, not really. It's quite a lot of drag though. It really is. I'm tempted to give it a bit of a clean out actually. Chuck some brake cleaner actually in it, and I'll just re-grease it and it goes back together. Oh yes. Wow, that's good stuff, is that? Mind your eyes. And that wasn't full power. I didn't want to get it on the camera. I've got it on the camera way too many times. So this has a plastic cage in there, and it's all intact. So I don't think this bearing would have caused any kind of a problem. It's a bit noisy, isn't it? But I mean, there's no grease in there now. It's running sort of what we call dry, and there is no play. Don't think that's a problem. Right, let's chuck that to one side with the seal and the plate. I think we should give our mat a bit of a clean off. There we go. Okay, so the next step, we've got another spacer in there. We'll just stick that to one side. Is that the same size as the outer spacer? It's not. The outer one is larger. Okay. It's always good to put that on camera because I'm going to put this thing back together one day. Hopefully. Okay, now we should now be able to extract the rotor from the unit, hopefully. Depending on the condition of the brushes, actually. Well, either way, it's going to have to come out, isn't it? Because we can't get to the brushes in the current position. So, let's give it a go. Okay, it should, in theory, pull out. Before we do that, a quick visual check. Can't see anything else, to be honest. Jeez. Doesn't want to come out. Okay, I think we'll pop this in the vise. We've got an aluminium jawed vise. We'll pop that on there and we'll just give this some gentle tappy taps. See if we get that rear casing taken off. Gentle, by the way. There we go. Okay. Let's take a look. Right, we've got the rotor out, and the slip rings don't actually look to be in too bad a condition. There isn't that much of a step. There's a bit, but they certainly haven't worn out by the looks of it. Not at all. Okay, we've got the rear bearing. That feels really good, actually. So I think the noise we must have been getting from when we were spinning it was that front bearing. It's quite a cool bearing. That's double thickness, isn't it? Very good. So This is essentially just an electromagnet. We've got a single winding running around in here. You can see them in there, look, all the windings. And one end of that wire goes to this slip ring, and one end goes to this slip ring here. If we were to put 12 volts across that, this would turn into a magnet. I think we should do that, just for fun. Right, see if this is going to work. Fingers crossed it will. I'll put the yellow one on positive, put the black one on negative. It's quite an old battery, but I think it's still got some juice in it. Now, got some super special adaptive crocodile clips to go on here, so we'll have that one on there, and we'll have that one on there. Be sure not to be touching anything. I think. Whew, we're pretty close. Hang on. There we go, that should work. Right, we'll stick that one on there. Might get some sparks, we'll wait and see. We'll stick that on there. Oh yes, look at that. We've got a magnet. Pretty cool. So the voltage regulator, all it does basically is it limits or controls the amount of current that's flowing through that, to vary the strength of the magnetic field, to, you know, alter output, the amount of current that's induced into the outer windings, the stator. Here, look, pretty cool, isn't it? Okay, so we'll get rid of that. One more go. I do like magnets. Aren't they cool? Right, watch. Release that. Bloody good. Anyway, we digress. We're not here to play around with that kind of stuff, but it is fun. So we know that works anyway, that's good. And on here, is there any signs of pulling? Well, pulling is, these are the poles. Did this make contact with the outer? And if it did, that, you know, as if a bearing was collapsing or something, then that would be another reason how it could have jammed up. But I mean, there's the odd little scratch, but there's nothing major, is there? You know, well, on the actual stator itself, the outer windings, how do they look? Is there any sign of any kind of pulling? No, but there's a bug. Look at that, you see that, look, little bug. You get all sorts of stuff can jump into these as you're driving along. Little stones and stuff could always get in there. In actual fact, it looks pretty good to me. And the brushes, A1 camera. Let's move the camera a bit. There you go, much better. Okay, so we can see the brushes down here, look. And they also look in pretty good nick. There's plenty of brush still remaining, it hasn't worn away. So, to all intents and purposes, you know, I really can't find much of a problem with this alternator. It's quite a mystery. I was expecting to see something really bad. Bit of an anticlimax, really, isn't it? Ben, no doubt, is going to want this thing putting back together at some point. We'll have to wait and see. Not impressed. Do we need to take the end piece off? I don't think we do, to be honest. Not really. I mean, we can see everything we need to see with it in situ. I would need to get that nut off the end of there, though, to get it off. Other than that, it should... That little hole, by the way, yes, that little hole there is for reassembly. A little grommet in there, we can ping that out. It's quite surprising to see it still there, actually. There we go. Come out, come out. Right, that's just a bung. Okay, so these are the brushes down here, and when you're doing the reassembly of these, you've basically got to push those down, and whilst doing that, on the back of the alternator, there is usually a little hole. Now this one had that rubber bung blocking it up, which is good, that keeps the dirt out, so don't lose that. And then basically you need a little tiny drill bit, something like this. This is probably about a 1.5, and then that goes through little holes in the brushes. Ideally something a bit longer would be better, because it's going to be pretty touch and go to get that on both of them and still have a bit sticking out to release them once the whole thing's reassembled. I think you get the idea. Let's see if we can get at least one of them pushed back. Can you see? Oh, you can see. Look at that. Right, inserting drill bit into hole. Okay, pushing brush down. There we go. That's that one held now. You see there's only one sticking up. I don't know if I can get that one or not. Oh yes, there we are. Right, so you can see now we've got said drill bit just sticking out at the end there, look. Like I say, I want a bit longer would be better. And now it's retracted both the brushes. So when you're putting the whole thing back together again, you're not going to harm the brushes. Pretty cool. Little trick. Right, so I'm going to release that now. Carefully. Yeah, look, I'll pull it out slowly. 1, 2, fantastic. So the question is, do we need to go any further? And well, the answer to that is, for this particular alternator, no. We've been able to gain access to everything that we need to look at. You know, we've found the rear bearing, which sits right down there in the casing behind the brushes. Well, we were able to inspect that on the rotor. It came out with the rotor and it's all good. No problems at all. There's no play. It doesn't really feel noisy. I suppose we could always check the grease in there. Let's have a look. Can you see? Yes, you're about there, aren't you? Okay, let's see if we can get that little cover taken off. Oh, look at that. There we are. So, what's the grease like? Well, it's not bad actually. It's not as bad as the other one. It's still greasy. It's not really noisy. There's no play. Everybody's happy. So we're going to leave that one well and truly alone. Yes, I can re-grease it later on if I want to. There we are. We'll stick the cover back in, the seal. Slip rings look good, but that wouldn't be an issue anyway. Yeah, you know, nothing wrong with that. And as regards stripping it down anymore, we don't need to do that. We can inspect the brushes from where they are. Everything else, there's nothing there that will cause this thing to jap up. So it really is a bit of a mystery as to why that belt stopped turning. I hope it's not the water pump. Bugger. So, thanks for joining me on this potentially quite short video. We didn't really know whether the alternator was to blame for the reason why that belt stopped turning. You know, and it had to have stopped turning. That would have been, the wear point would have been around the crankshaft pulley. That's the only one that could have done that. You know, because otherwise the belt would have continued to turn with the crank and it would have just worn the whole belt out. So that's the only place it could have happened. As it turns out, I can't find anything wrong with this alternator. Ben will be very happy, but also a bit worried. Worst thing we found was that front bearing, and if I put pressure on it and just turn it, it does feel a little bit notchy. And there was noise. Something was making a noise when we spun the rotor. Don't know. Maybe I'll pop that bearing out and replace it, you know, when I come to do the rebuild. Should Ben need it to be rebuilt, I mean, it really would only be a spare alternator for him. And it has done about 350,000 kilometers, this alternator. It's done really well. So I don't know. Sometimes, you know, you pull these things apart expecting to see something, and we haven't really found anything conclusive, you know. Yes, there's a bearing that's a bit iffy. Brushes are good. Rear bearing's good. There's been no purling. That's about as good as it gets. So, sorry. It wasn't one of those wow moments. Holy crap, look at this. Sometimes you don't get that. Anyway, I've got to crack on. I've got a trailer full of sand still to unload. Mrs. Mechanic's been shoveling away all morning, but I'm sure there's still lots left to do, so I need to give her a hand doing that. Okay, crew, well, if you enjoyed the video, why not click on the subscribe button, ring the bell, and our friends at YouTube, well, they're going to send you an email as and when I upload any new videos. You'll also find me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Feel free to communicate through any of those portals. My email address, and I'm getting lots more emails these days, my email address is down in the description of the video, which is andymechanic@live.co.uk. If you want to support the channel, and many do, and those that do, thank you very much. You can do that through the Patreon page, and again, there's a link on the home page of the channel, and also through the PayPal portal. And again, that's down the bottom. It's the same email address for PayPal. Right, crew. Well, better crack on. Until next time, see you around. Cheers. Over and out. So, hope you enjoyed the video. Huge thank you to Timothy for doing this editing for me. Editing up of videos takes a very, very long time. There's a big part of running a YouTube channel. So having somebody else knock up the video for me once I've filmed it is a really big help. And I think Timothy has done a fantastic job. Again, thank you very much. And, see you next time.
And we get the flip.
Oh!